She was left beneath the ash, alone, choking, nearly silent, a baby too young to crawl, surrounded by smoke and death. And no one knew, until he stood over her, a wounded German shepherd with scorched fur and eyes that refused to blink. His name was Bruno. He wasn't trained to protect, he wasn't bred to rescue, but somehow he understood. He shielded her through fire and fear until help came. What happened next will restore your faith in love that transcends species. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Let's see how far this miracle travels. And if you believe no baby should ever be abandoned and no hero should go unnoticed, hit that subscribe button. This story will stay in your heart long after the final word. The wildfire had devoured nearly 1,000 acres of Flathead Forest, Montana, turning towering pines into blackened skeletons and scattering wildlife deep into the hills. Helicopters rumbled low over the smoke, dousing the flames while fire crews scoured the ash-laced edges for flare-ups and signs of life. It was during one of these flyovers that a strange sight appeared on the monitor movement where there should have been none. On a ridge near the heart of the burn zone, a large German shepherd stood between smoldering trunks, half hidden beneath curling smoke. He wasn't running, he wasn't limping away, he was guarding something. From the mobile command post, the images came through grainy but clear. The dog, black and tan, visibly wounded on one flank, standing over a scorched patch of ground near a collapsed pine. His stance was tense, unflinching, defiant. He shifted occasionally, his body curled protectively around an unseen shape. The fire crew on the ground was hesitant. Attempts to get close were met with guttural growls, sharp and primal. One firefighter tried to call softly, no response. Another tried a gentle whistle. The dog snarled, baring his teeth. "That's no feral animal," murmured Lacey Grimes, watching the live feed. "That dog's on duty." From the background, an older voice spoke up. "I'll go." Tom Walker, age 62, approached the monitor with a quiet certainty. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-damaged skin and a heavy fireproof jacket slung over his shoulder, Tom moved with the confidence of someone who had seen the worst days and somehow kept going. A retired firefighter from Missoula, Tom had fought wildland fires for 3 decades, until one horrible year when a cabin blaze took both a young family and his infant son. Since then, he rarely left the town. But something about the dog's eyes on the screen stirred something old in him, a pulse of purpose. They flew him in by short-haul chopper, dropped just a few hundred feet from the sighting. Smoke danced along the forest floor, and the silence was thick as Tom moved through the charred underbrush, his boots cracking over scorched needles. Then he saw him. The dog was bigger than he appeared on the monitor, easily 80 pounds, with broad shoulders and a proud, noble head. His fur was scorched in streaks. A gash near the ribs oozed slowly, but his amber eyes burned with focus. He stood over a small mound of blackened branches and singed pine needles, not growling yet, but watching. Tom stopped a dozen feet away. "Easy, boy," he said, voice hoarse but calm. "I'm not here to take anything. I just want to see." The dog growled low. Tom slowly knelt and removed his helmet, revealing graying hair and eyes sunken from years of memory. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "A long time ago I had a dog, smart as anything, saved my life once. His name was Bruno." The German shepherd blinked but did not move. "I think I'll call you that, if it's all right. Bruno." Then something shifted. Bruno's ears twitched. He didn't snarl again. He didn't lunge. Instead, he lowered his body protectively over the charred earth. From a nearby ridge, the rescue helicopter circled. One of the crew snapped a photograph of a man crouched near a defiant German shepherd, half of the dog's body lying across a faint shape beneath him. The camera, zoomed in later, revealed a glimpse of pale blue fabric peeking out from under Bruno's flank. A blanket, scorched, small, but unmistakably a child's. The sun hovered like a dull ember above the haze, casting an amber glow over the scorched remains of Flathead Forest. Smoke still clung to the trees like ghosts refusing to leave, curling through the branches, smudging out the sky. In the middle of it all, Bruno stirred. Slowly, painfully, the German shepherd lifted his head as Tom Walker approached, flanked by Dr. Mallory Green and her assistant paramedics. Bruno's body trembled as he shifted just enough to reveal what lay nestled beneath him. The silence broke. Mallory froze mid-step. Tom's breath caught in his throat. A baby. The infant, no more than 7 months old, lay curled tightly into herself under a smudged blue blanket. Her cheeks were flushed with heat and dust, but her chest rose faintly labored but steady. Strands of blackened hair clung to her brow, and around her tiny wrist was tangled a length of melted nylon, the remains of a dog collar still looped loosely around Bruno's neck. Her fist gripped it as if it were the only thing tethering her to the world. "She's alive," Mallory whispered, blinking smoke from her eyes. She dropped to her knees beside Tom, setting her medical bag down with trembling hands. Mallory Green was in her late 30s, lean and sharp-featured, with eyes the color of green glass, intelligent, assessing. She wore her auburn hair in a tight braid tucked under her helmet. Years of treating injured wildlife in the field had given her a no-nonsense edge, but she also carried the kind of patience that only came from watching animals suffer and survive with quiet dignity. She pressed a stethoscope to the baby's chest, listening. "Pulse is faint but present. We need to hydrate her immediately. Respiratory distress likely from smoke exposure. We don't have long." Bruno didn't growl this time. He simply watched with tired, wounded eyes, his flank rising in shallow waves. His body, though torn and burnt, remained tensed, guarding even as help arrived. Behind them, the brush parted as 2 additional responders arrived, Deputy Carter Santos and EMT Katie McMillan. Carter was in his early 40s, Latino, with a buzz cut and calm eyes that had seen too many accidents in Montana's backcountry. Tall, with a badge slightly scuffed from years on patrol, he crouched beside the dog without flinching. "Jesus," he murmured, taking in the scene. She was under him? All this time? Tom nodded. He shielded her, took the heat himself. Katie moved in beside Mallory, her dark brown skin streaked with soot, black curls pulled back beneath her fire-resistant hood. A former Air Force medic turned rural EMT, Katie was methodical and fiercely competent. "We need an evac," she said. "I'll call it in." She stepped back and radioed dispatch, her voice crisp despite the weight of the moment. "Infant located, conscious but dehydrated. 1 canine, injured but stable. Immediate medevac requested to Kalispell Regional." Mallory gently loosened the blanket, revealing reddened skin and minor burns along the baby's arms. "She needs oxygen, and she needs to be in a hospital now." The helicopter was already on its way. Tom held out his arms. "Let me take her." Mallory hesitated, but nodded. Tom lifted the baby, cradling her gently against his chest. Her head lolled to the side, then nestled into the crook of his neck. A soft sound escaped her lips. Not a cry, something weaker, like a breath in reverse. Her hand still held the edge of Bruno's collar. Bruno whined softly, attempting to follow, but his back leg gave out. Tom turned to him. "It's okay, boy," he said. "We're not leaving you behind." Carter placed a steadying hand on Bruno's shoulder. "We've got you." As Bruno was hoisted gently onto a stretcher, Katie glanced toward the tree line. "Found something else," she called. About 100 yards back, abandoned pickup, half covered in ash. "Montana plates." Tom's head snapped around. "Whose is it?" Carter stepped away to radio the plate number. A few tense minutes passed. Then his voice returned, low and troubled. "Registered to Rachel Conrad." Tom looked at him. "Who's that?" 28-year-old out of Libby. Lost custody of her infant daughter 7 months ago. Mental health issues, no stable housing. She's been off the radar since February. Mallory looked at the baby in Tom's arms. This might be her. Katie exhaled sharply. "She left her baby out here?" "No," Tom said. "She left her with him." They all turned to Bruno, who now lay quietly on the stretcher, eyes still tracking every movement Tom made with the child. The chopper arrived moments later, its blades slicing through the smoky sky. Dust and ash flew as it landed in a clearing nearby. The baby was passed up carefully, followed by Mallory and Katie. Tom stayed behind a moment, crouching next to Bruno once more. "You're coming too," he murmured. "Wherever she goes, you go. That's the deal." Bruno didn't bark or whimper, he simply blinked, slow and solemn. When they were both secured in the medevac, Mallory leaned toward Tom and asked, "You've worked fire lines for 30 years. Ever seen anything like that?" Tom shook his head. "Not once." He looked down at the child in his arms. She was breathing better now. Oxygen mask fitted snugly to her face. Her hand, still gripping the singed piece of Bruno's collar, didn't loosen. and something shifted in Tom's chest, something old and broken, stirred back to life by the smallest of fingers. 3 days had passed since the wildfire. Snow now began to fall where the ash once drifted, the Montana skies softening into winter's hush. Flathead Forest was silent, save for the occasional crunch of boots along the frozen trail or the gentle rustle of tarp at the mobile medical shelter set up just outside Kalispell. Inside the pediatric unit of Kalispell Regional Medical Center, the lights had been dimmed to give a sense of calm. The air was clean and clinical, but somewhere in the sterile quiet, there was warmth, the kind that didn't come from blankets or heaters. In the hospital bassinet, the baby girl stirred. She no longer cried. That had stopped the second Bruno's low bark echoed from the adjacent corridor. Her tiny fingers loosened. Her breath slowed. Her name, chosen by the rescue team after hours of paperwork and emotional exhaustion, was Hope. She had no last name yet. Just Hope. She slept best to the sound of his voice. Bruno, now resting under constant monitoring in a veterinary unit 2 buildings away, had sustained second-degree burns along his underbelly and hind legs. He was wrapped in thick layers of bandages, sedated but alert. The vet team had named him the Sentinel because even in pain, he resisted rest if he couldn't hear Hope nearby. Every few hours, the team piped in audio from her crib, a recording of her cooing, her breathing, a faint lullaby playing in the background. And when he whimpered in his sleep, they played him the clip of her tiny giggle, the one she'd made when Mallory first tickled her nose with a stethoscope. But it wasn't enough. Tom Walker had seen the decline in Bruno's eyes. The dog was healing, but emotionally, he drifted. Hope had become his mission, and now they were separated by hallways and procedure. Tom knew what had to happen. He met with Dr. Linda Marcus, the hospital's pediatric director, a woman in her early 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a low twist and square, assertive glasses. She was a rule follower, shaped by years in bureaucratic systems, but her voice softened when she asked, "Are you saying the dog needs to see the baby?" "She needs him more than you know," Tom said, "and he needs to see that she's okay, or we'll lose him. Not from infection, he'll survive that, but from heartbreak." Linda exhaled. "We'd need legal clearance, liability waivers, clean room suits for staff, coordination with the vet unit." "I'll get the judge," Tom said. Judge Harriet Vance, age 64, had presided over countless emergency custody hearings in Montana. A heavy-set woman with a commanding voice and a sharp wit, she had a notorious no-nonsense demeanor in court. But when she received the call from the sheriff's office about Rachel Conrad and her baby, she didn't hesitate to drive in from Missoula. She listened to Rachel's statement with folded hands and unsmiling eyes. Rachel Conrad sat in a conference room, pale, thin, and trembling beneath a gray hoodie. At 28, she looked closer to 40 worn by stress and fear. Her fingers fidgeted around a lukewarm coffee cup. Her voice broke twice as she explained why she had left her daughter in the forest. "I didn't plan to abandon her," she whispered. "I was trying to keep her safe. My ex found me again. I had nowhere to go. I thought I could hide her where no one would think to look. I was going to come back." Judge Vance narrowed her eyes. "Do you realize what could have happened?" Rachel nodded, tears silently falling. "Yes." Tom stood nearby. "Your Honor, I believe her. But more than that, I believe in second chances. And so does that dog." Hope's attachment to Bruno, and Bruno's refusal to eat or sleep without her near, became the cornerstone of what happened next. An emergency court hearing was called. Dr. Mallory Green testified on Bruno's emotional response to Hope's absence. Nurse Celeste Hardy, a middle-aged woman with calm hands and a long memory from the neonatal unit, spoke of how Hope refused to rest unless Bruno's bark was played through the monitor. Sheriff Santos presented his findings, photos of the pickup truck, Rachel's background, statements from neighbors confirming her attempts to stay clean and avoid her ex. By the time it was over, Judge Vance did something unprecedented. She approved a limited custodial reunification on one condition. Hope would remain in Rachel's care, but the arrangement would take place under the guardianship and monitoring of Tom Walker on his property outside Kalispell, in a semi-wild family model that allowed both Hope and Bruno to stay together. Bruno would not be caged. Rachel would not be punished. Instead, they would be watched together as they healed. That weekend, the snow fell harder. Tom had cleared a small patch of land on his property, built a shed insulated with straw, blankets, and heaters. A crib stood next to a bed, and a reinforced dog cot lay beside it. Rachel arrived, tentative and quiet. Hope squealed the moment she saw Bruno, now limping slowly toward her. Rachel dropped to her knees and cried. Hope crawled her first full crawl across the wooden floor to Bruno and pressed her face against his neck. Bruno whined, then gently licked her forehead. Tom turned away, his throat tightening. The last time he'd seen a baby crawl was his son gone too soon. Now, beneath the quieting snow, a second chance unfolded. And on the fifth morning, with flakes still drifting like silent prayers, Tom looked out the window and saw something that stopped him cold. Hope, bundled in wool, crawled across the porch toward the paddock. Bruno followed slowly, his tail wagging. She reached him, threw her arms around his neck, and held tight. The snow gathered gently around them, framing the moment like a painting. Tom stepped outside and joined them. He didn't speak. He knelt next to Bruno, placed a hand on the dog's head, and let the tears fall. This time not from grief, but from gratitude. Forgiveness, perhaps, had taken the shape of fur and tiny hands. Sometimes miracles don't come with thunder or lightning. Sometimes they come quietly through the soft bark of a wounded dog, the grip of a baby's tiny hand, or the heart of a man who had given up on healing. Bruno wasn't trained, he wasn't commanded, he simply chose to protect, and that choice saved a life, restored a mother, and awakened a heart long silent. This story reminds us that God's grace often arrives in the most unexpected ways. In a world full of noise and chaos, maybe the greatest miracle is love that asks for nothing in return. So if you believe that every life has purpose, that healing can happen when we least expect it, and that love can rise even from ashes, then share this story. Someone out there may need this hope today. Leave a comment with amen if you believe in second chances. Subscribe for more stories that will move your heart. And may God bless you and everyone you love, because sometimes, even in the coldest places, heaven sends us a guardian.